Welcome to our presentation of Changing Culture, One Person at a Time, All at the Same Time. Before I begin the presentation, allow me to dwell a bit on the title. You see, we think we have found a way to improve the culture of an organization in a relatively easy and painless way by focusing on one person at a time. In an organization of, say, 1,000 people, you might think that focusing on one person at a time would take a lot of time. And it would if we focused on one person at a time in series. That is, first one, then the other, and then the other. But what if we were to focus on one person at a time in parallel, or all at the same time? This is what we're going to talk about in this presentation. The basis for everything we're going to suggest is this quote: "Everything we need to know about improving our lives is contained within our failures." Everything. And not just the big failures, even the little ones, especially the little ones. That is, as long as we can see ourselves as part of our failures. If you have learned the truth of this quote, you will undoubtedly appreciate what you're about to hear. If you have not learned the truth of this quote, you might have a hard time accepting our idea unless you think long and hard about it. What we will suggest is a focus on personal accountability, not in a blaming way, but in a constructive, introspective way, where everyone will be asked to see themselves as part of their problems, and no one will be allowed to blame. Personal accountability at all levels of an organization, not just at the hands-on level, nor the technical levels, but everywhere, everyone. In order to understand our suggestion, you'll first have to understand our model, that is, our way of understanding why things go wrong. As you will see, our model focuses on personal accountability at all levels in a non-blaming, introspective manner. Our model starts with an event, an undesirable event. For example, the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded. Assuming for a moment that the event is a physical incident of sorts, as with the Challenger explosion, then the first thing we'll attempt to understand is the physics of the event. Let's keep this simple and say that the Challenger exploded because the O-rings were too cold to expand and seal the solid rocket booster joints at launch time. We call this one of the physical causes of the event. But once we have understood the physics of the event, then we'll attempt to understand how the human being allowed or enabled the physics. In other words, we then define the human interface, and there will always be a human interface. In this case, let's keep it simple again and say NASA decided to launch the shuttle in spite of internal warnings about O-ring problems. We call this interface the human causes of the event. Human causes answer the question, who did what wrong that allowed or enabled the physics? And there are usually many human causes. By the way, these human causes are self-identified by the person or people that were involved in the incident. In other words, these human causes are never declared or pointed out by someone else. When that happens, it's perceived as the blame game. What we are suggesting here has nothing to do with the blame game. At the point of defining this human interface, or human causes, we have reached a milestone in our process. We are now ready to dive into the most important causes of the event. Before we go further, please consider the following. Everything we do is caused by the thoughts going through our mind at a particular point in time. No matter what it is a person did or did not do, that person's behavior was caused by their thoughts. The thoughts, then, are the causes of the event. Therefore, once we understand what people did, our model requires a focus on the actual thoughts that went through the person's mind at the time they did whatever they did. Then, even more importantly, we acknowledge the thoughts that should have been going through the person's mind whenever they did what they did, or the desired thoughts. In the case of the challenger, admittedly oversimplifying, their actual thoughts were, "We have been hearing about these O-ring problems since the second launch of the space shuttle 5 years ago, and nothing has ever happened. There's a lot at stake, so we're going to launch." In retrospect, looking back at this, perhaps NASA's desired thoughts should have been something like, "We have been dealing with these O-ring problems far too long. One day it's going to bite us. It's time to shut down the program and resolve this nagging problem once and for all." As soon as we define both states, actual versus desired thoughts, we are in a position to answer the final questions. First, what is it about the way we are that accounts for the gap in these thoughts? The we here is the collective we, whomever made these decisions within NASA. Perhaps they might answer, "We tend to live with small problems, especially if they have not caused problems in the past." And then, even more importantly, the model requires each person implied in the we to answer, "What is it about the way I am that is part of the above?" Perhaps one of the people might have answered, "I tend to put program objectives above safety concerns." Please note what is happening here. No one is blaming anyone. Instead, everyone is self-reflecting. This model for understanding why things go wrong changes people, because the people involved are seeing themselves as part of their problems. And when people change, cultures change. Unfortunately, however, our model of failure depends on something going wrong. Some kind of investigatable event has to have occurred, and investigatable events are usually big and ugly. And when something investigatable goes wrong, it takes a lot of time to gather the evidence to discover why it went wrong. And although the learning is often profound, it is usually only a small group of people, those involved, that experience the profound learning. So even when we take the time and gather the right people, it's only those people that change, the people involved in the incident. And this kind of change, one person at a time, does not happen fast enough to prevent very painful problems. There must be a better way to discover what is it about the way we are, and what is it about the way I am that contributes to the problems around me without having to experience these investigatable events. I wonder what would happen if we would consider the things that happen in our lives that are so small that they are usually not even considered as a learning opportunity. Let's call these very small events micro events. What is a micro event? Well, again, it's a very small thing that went wrong. Something with little or no immediate consequence. Something we normally dismiss as meaningless. Most importantly, a micro event is an event where no evidence gathering whatsoever is required because its causes are so obvious. Which means that the person who has encountered the micro event can jump right into the most important part of the learning process and ask, what did I do that I should not have done? And then, what actual thoughts went through my mind as I did whatever I did? And then, what thoughts should have gone through my mind instead? And finally, what is it about the way I am that accounts for the gap in these thoughts? These micro events are everywhere, right in front of our noses, begging to be listened to. Examples of micro events might include, while carrying coffee without a lid, some spilled on the floor. Wife left something on the steps at home and almost fell over it. A supervisor sent out emails with several typos. A seminar leader forgot to order some materials for one of his past seminars. Some students had to do without them. A homeowner did not fully close the door of a wood stove after lighting it. His wife pointed it out before the stove overheated. A housewife placed a bag of groceries on the oven top. The burners were not on, but they could have been. Are you thinking of some examples on your own? Imagine what would happen if everyone, everywhere in an organization, would spend a little time looking at the micro events in their lives. Executives would learn, what is it about the way I am that contributes to the problems around me? And what am I going to do about it? So would their direct reports. So would managers at all levels, as well as foremen and the hands-on workforce. This is what we mean by changing culture, one person at a time, all at the same time. Some of our friends have suggested that we need to give you some concrete examples of what might happen if an organization actually did this. But we can't. This is a new idea, and to be frank, we cannot even imagine what might happen if an organization actually did this. All we can imagine is goodness, possibly to a scale we have never seen. Let me show you the worksheet we have been using to demonstrate how easy this is. I'll take you through the worksheet slowly this first time, and then I'll show you two other quick examples. In this case, we're looking at a website specialist who came back to his office after a meeting and saw that the top of his desk was all wet. He looked to his right and saw that he forgot to close the window, and a thunderstorm blew through and rained through the open window. This is what we mean by a micro event, one that does not have to be investigated, one whose causes are obvious. So the website specialist would look at the worksheet, and right under actual behavior, I left open the window. Desired behavior, I closed the window. The next part of the worksheet asks the website specialist to slow down and think about the sequence of events that led up to the actual behavior. Well, I was working on the website, which is due on Monday. 10 a.m. was approaching, time of the meeting. At 10:01, I looked at the clock and realized I was late. I ran up the hall to the meeting without shutting the window. Let's look at the next thing that we would like to consider. What was the triggering situation? Or what was it that presented itself to you that led to you doing what you did? Start with the word when. Well, when I saw that it was 10:01 and I was late for the 10 o'clock meeting. Okay. What I'd like you to do right now, a website specialist, is go back to that point in time, 10:01, when you looked up and looked at your monitor and saw that it was 10:01. Do you remember the actual thoughts that went through your mind at that particular point in time? Well, yeah, I thought something like, I'm late. Oh no, I'm late. I have to run. All right, very good. Now let's think about this. What thoughts do you think should have run through your mind when you saw that it was 10:01 and you were late? And at this point, the person slows down. They have to slow down because they haven't thought this through yet. So they slow down and they write down on this worksheet, well, I suppose I should have been thinking, I better close the window. Rain could get in and ruin all these papers. The next part of the worksheet asks, what is it about the way that I am that is apparent in the above thoughts? I actually thought the thing on the left. I should have thought the thing on the right. What is it about the way I am that accounts for that gap? I'd like you to start with the words, I tend to, and then end with, and I know that this is not good. Again, this requires some thought. And again, this has to come from the website specialist. Nobody can tell the specialist what he should write here. Well, I guess I tend to be too intense and work right up until the next task without taking any breaks or refreshers. And I know this is not good. All right, very good. Finally, what might you do about this? What do you intend to do about this thing that you just wrote down? And again, this requires thought. And he writes down, I will put a pop-up reminder on my Google Calendar to remind me to take a break every hour, where I will get up from my desk and go somewhere else. In addition, I'll put up a pop-up reminder for every meeting I attend that gives me appropriate lead time to get to the meeting. Very, very good. So now the website specialist is to meet with his supervisor, his immediate supervisor, and he's going to sit down with that supervisor and review what happened here and what led to it. So the immediate supervisor and the website specialist review all of this, and after the supervisor hears it, he is asked, what is it about the way you are that contributed to this behavior? Please start with I tend to and end with, and I know this is not good. And after hearing what one of his employees went through, the supervisor answers, I tend not to stress the importance of breaks and instead focus only on deadlines, and I know this is not good. And finally, the supervisor is asked, what do you intend to do about this? And with some thought, with some introspection, he says this, in our next weekly meeting, I will let everyone know of my concern. I will also insist on a 1-hour group meeting every Friday where we will do nothing but relax, share about ourselves, and catch up on the more important things of life. Now let me show you another example a little faster. Here's a coffeehouse employee. Something happened to this coffeehouse employee. You're going to hear what happened. The supervisor also knew that this happened. The supervisor in this case asked the coffeehouse employee to fill in this worksheet. So what happened? Actual behavior. I passed a cup of coffee to a customer with a loose lid. Desired behavior. I passed a cup of coffee to a customer with a sealed lid. Sequence of events that led up to the actual behavior. Well, the last customer pulled away from the drive-through window. A new customer pulled up to the drive-through window. I grabbed the coffee that was placed on my table and handed it through the drive-through window. I saw that the lid was open, but I gave it to the customer anyway. Triggering situation. What situation presented itself to you that led to you passing a cup of coffee to a customer with a loose lid? Well, when I grabbed the cup of coffee to hand it to the customer. Do you remember the actual thoughts that went through your mind when you grabbed that cup of coffee to hand it to the customer? Well, not really, but I suppose something like, this is a simple order. The line is long and I can make up some time on this one. The lid is a little loose, but that's okay. And I handed it to the customer. All right, now let's think. What thoughts should have been going through your mind that would have led you to seal the lid before you passed it to the customer? Well, I guess, the lid is not secure. I'll take 2 seconds and secure the lid because I don't want her to burn herself. Very, very good. Now, what is it about the way you are that is apparent in these thoughts? Well, I guess I tend to be more focused on getting things through the window fast than on the personal safety of myself and the customer. And I know this is not good. Very, very good. One more thing. What do you intend to do about this? Well, I will press my timer button each time a new order comes to me that is preset for 10 seconds. During this time, I will not multitask, but review the customer's order to make sure it is correct with the receipt, and I will ensure that all bags, cups, and lids are properly sealed. I will use a timer for 6 weeks or until I develop a habit of double-checking everything handed to me to ensure accuracy and safe handling. Excellent. So now that the coffeehouse employee does this, remember that his supervisor asked him to do this. Now he gets together with the supervisor who asked him to do this. The supervisor listens to the coffeehouse employee explain his worksheet. He listens to the whole dilemma. He does not criticize. He's only listening and understanding. And then the coffeehouse supervisor is asked, what is it about the way you are that contributed to this event? And he says, I tend not to stress the importance of customer or employee safety, but more importantly, stress the 3-minute drive-through rule. 3 minutes from customer order to handoff is vital, and I know this is not good. Well, what do you intend to do about this? I will tell all of my employees about having a 10-second timer at the drive-through window to ensure accuracy and handoff safety. I like that idea. I will also do rotations every hour of my shift to check that my employees are utilizing the timer. And during this time, I will also ensure that quality service and the correct order is being presented to the customer. The timers will continue until my employees develop a habit. Rotations will continue indefinitely. You see how easy this is? You see how rewarding this could be? One more quick example. Now here's a man who decided to do this all on his own. His boss didn't ask him to do it. He recognized a problem and he wanted to try the worksheet. Actual behavior. I gave an employee a newsletter article with typos in it. Desired behavior. I gave an employee a newsletter article with no typos in it. Sequence of events leading up to the actual behavior. Well, my employee told me that the newsletter was overdue. I quickly wrote the newsletter. I did not see any red marks in Word indicating any problems. I gave the employee the article with typos in it that were not caught by Word. What situation triggered this? When my employee told me the newsletter was overdue. Do you remember the thoughts that went through your mind when your employee told you that the newsletter was overdue? Yeah, I remember. I have a million more important things to do than this. I don't like writing the newsletter. I can do this fast and then get it off my desk. In retrospect, looking back at this, what thoughts should have gone through your mind? It would have led to you not giving your employee a newsletter with typos in it. Well, everything we do is important, or we would not be doing it. I'll write the newsletter and then double check it for errors before I give it to my employee. All right, let's look at those two thoughts, the actual and the desired, and ask, what is it about the way I am that is apparent in those thoughts? And after some reflection, I tend to think that some of our tasks are more important than others, and therefore do not place enough attention on the ones I feel are not as important. This is not good. What do I intend to do about this? Well, this is a hard one. I'll do my best to change my attitude about our work. If we decide to do it, it all must be considered of equal importance. I will ask my employees to point out instances where I seem to be slighting some of our tasks, and I will go through this exercise each time they tell me. I hope you see the value in this. I really hope you try this. Why not try it? You have nothing to lose. Please download the template from our website. Go to the Free Resources tab and you'll find it. Try it on any micro event that you encountered. They happen all the time. Then show this presentation to a friend and then ask them to try it. Then do it again and again and again and see what you find. We guarantee that you'll learn some things about yourself that you might want to address. Now imagine an entire workforce doing this. One person at a time, all at the same time. Everyone asking, what is it about the way I am that contributes to the problems around me, and what am I going to do about it? Really, imagine.
It is always hard to talk and teach about an exciting new idea, especially if it is radically different from what people are used to hearing, when they might be immersed in a different way of thinking, a different culture, a culture of blame. Look around us today. Can't we all admit there's a problem? Everywhere we look, people are blaming one another. Bad things are happening worldwide. It's sad and it's heartbreaking. Is there hope in all of this calamity? We think so. There's always hope. We do not claim to have an answer to all the world's problems, mainly because what we are suggesting is a direct affront to human nature. We're suggesting that people look at themselves as part of their problems. Everyone, everywhere. And that seems to be the one thing people are not doing these days. But I can do it if I choose. And so can you. And maybe, just maybe, when enough people choose to look at themselves instead of blaming one another, we can start swinging the pendulum in another direction. And if not, at least we can make our own lives more meaningful. So now that you've heard an overview of our idea, I would like to leave you with some thoughts to bring it closer to home. Our idea is for each of us to learn from the micro events of our lives. It's an idea that is geared for people that care about their surroundings and their impact on their surroundings. Now I need you to realize how simple this idea is and where it can be applied. Although we modeled our idea after our existing investigative processes, we had always envisioned this new micro idea being applied in a simple environment: home. You cannot deny that your roots take place at home. Even if your work is the center of your life, growing up, your thoughts, the way of being, was probably modeled in a home. Work may be where you spend your time, and your heart may be 100% engulfed in work. But home is your space. You made it. You care for it. Your family may be there, and your downtime is enveloped in it. So wouldn't it be true that if you can change the way you think at home, a space you made for yourself, then you change internally, which would radiate to all facets of life? This doesn't have to be difficult. Think about a micro mindset. Did your husband leave the back porch light on all night? Did your roommate leave dishes in the sink? Did your wife forget to give you your mail that contained important bill information? How about kids? Geez. If you don't have kids, think about when you were a kid. And let's make this better. Think about when you were a teenager. Wouldn't that have been easier to change and admit your lack of responsibility if you had to have a conversation with your parents based on this microsheet? You would still have to admit your faults, your wrongdoings, but your parents would have to as well. You know what I love about the micro? It makes you realize in any organization, whether it's work, home, school, churches, etc., two people are always at fault, but we can work together to change ourselves. Our process shows that, in the teenager's case, they may have done something at fault. But what is it about the way the parent currently is that allowed or enabled the teenager to do and think the way that they did? You cannot seriously think you can punish and expect change. The event happened for a reason. You need to change too. If you don't, nothing will result besides anger, frustration, and fear. Our society needs introspection. We need to change our individual selves, but we need to work together. We need to stop holding people accountable, but hold ourselves accountable. The blame game needs to end now.
Please let us know what you think about this idea, and thank you very much for your attention.